Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to our Friday future, our Friday highlight. So we put a poll up, and you voted, and I'm going to be showcasing the Tier 7 Russian battleship, the Sinop, today. And as actually, when I've been playing Sinop, I've been running Nikolai Kuznetsov on the Sinop, and was playing a lot of Tier 7 ranked, Tier 6, 7 ranked. As now the new rank season has started up, but this was from the previous rank season. So let me just talk a few things really quick just about the ship. If I'm to highlight this ship, there's kind of like two things, I guess, that I would say would be the biggest things I would highlight before jumping into a randoms battle. And that is just simply her armor scheme. The Russian battleships are known for being tanky. You have a 26mm nose, common like most practically all the other Tier 7 battleships, with some exceptions. And then you have this stronger icebreaker bow running along the bottom. Only a few Tier 7 battleships have this. Most of them it's a whole 26mm nose or something like the Rook. And it has a 16mm nose, so that's a pretty weak nose. And then this armor belt is just crazy strong. I mean, you're very sturdy along the whole side plating of the ship. And you also have this lower afton armor belt, and then the top 26mm. Your guns don't get knocked out too often. It can happen, but they're really strong with 400mm on the front, 400mm on the sides, and 400mm on the back. The weakness, though, is on the top, the 200. So if a battleship volley comes in just right on the top, it could incapacitate your guns, or probably like a Tier 8 dive bomber German aircraft carrier dropping armor-piercing bombs could possibly knock out your turrets. But they're super sturdy, and you really don't need to build into them too much, in my opinion. Maybe besides the first upgrade, but not even with the Kuznetsov. So the armor scheme is just really strong. I should show you the Citadel armor really quick. So it's 100mm, but if I actually add this back on, you can see it's 300mm. Okay, go over here. 100mm on the back side of it, and 50mm before you actually punch through into the beginning of the Citadel. So it's really strong, even though it is definitely above waterline. Even though you have all this armor plating, it doesn't mean you can't be Citadeled. You can be Citadeled if you show too much broadside with Sinop, but as long as you're angled well, she's very forgiving. Last thing I want to make mention of, actually, let's go back to this view, is the guns. So I'm going to just show some video footage in the background of these guns. Now, one of the reasons why Sinop is really strong, it's because of these 406mm guns. They just punish all other Tier 7 ships in the game because they're 406mm. They have a longer reload time, though, being 33 seconds. The AP is really strong, and that's mostly typically the only thing you'll be firing, unless maybe you're going up against another Russian battleship and you want to switch over to HE, or it's a destroyer. But they're really strong because of their penetration capacity and of other Tier 6, Tier 7 battleships, even some Tier 8 ships you'll see in the game. Because of them being 406mm and their velocity is 767 ms. It's like meters a second, I think, if I remember correctly. You just cut through the bowels of enemy battleships like a hot knife through butter. And you're seeing in these different clips just how punishing it is. And I kind of always get excited especially when I see the Tier 7 British battleships in the game. Because even though they think they're angled in or they're bow into me, that I'm not going to be able to punish them and Citadel them, they are sadly mistaken. So, you know, like, because there's many Tier 7 battleships for some reason among the British battleships. You have, you know, the Nelson, you have the Rook, you have the Duke of York, you have the King George V. And the same goes even for, like, the Caracciolo also has 26mm bow, as I'm checking that right now in the background. So there's not a lot that can stand against your shells, although the Caracciolo has a 150mm icebreaker bow on the very bottom portion of it. So you pretty much just dominate all other tier 7 battleships when you're in this battle and fight with them. And really where you will begin to lose out, where things can be dissuaded, is when you're dealing with something like maybe something with torpedoes, like an Eisenhower or Scharnhorst or Prince Heinrich. They have to push in for you to win, because otherwise they're not going to be able to stand a long-term engagement. And with even shooting at cruisers longer distance, because your AP is so good, you're more likely to get the arc of the shells into the citadel. If you're dealing with a cruiser that's really close to you, you have to aim really low and try to have your shells armed through the water and then hit into the citadel and explode inside the ship. Otherwise, you're going to be getting a lot of overpins up close and personal. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and prep the ship to go into randoms battle. So this is going to be live commentary, of course, so whatever happens, happens. It's good or bad. Hopefully at least decent. No, I think we're just gonna run those. This would probably be my typical run setup. I do the combat signals on Sinop. Economic bonuses, since I've already had the Vladivostok, I don't need to take any XP, but I'm just gonna run this. Since I already have a 21-point commander, the commander XP economic bonus I'm running is just gonna increase my Elite Commander XP, and here you can see the build that I am running, which I will go into depth and talk about tomorrow. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So probably one thing I'll talk about with the commander. I have had Kuznetsov for a long time, and so there's actually probably one skill on the 1 point I would actually change in terms of running it on the Russian battleships, but I'm training up a different commander to run up on the Vladivostok up to Kremlin, and I'll probably end up putting Kuznetsov on Kremlin at some point. I've just left him on Sinop because I enjoy playing Sinop in ranked when it's tier 7 ranked, or if it's tier 7, tier 6, just because even against the tier 6 battleships, you just dominate. So. Alright, I do apologize, but I am not going to be able to show the randoms. The match I had was really weird and strange, and I don't have all day to keep playing random battles to try to ensure that one good or decent, not doesn't be great, but a decent randoms match in featuring the ship. So what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to show you this match from ranked that I had a while back. I held on to this clip because it does show off specific things I'm like about Sinop once I kind of understood the ship well and understood the talent that the ship has in terms of her armor and her main battery 406mm guns. So I'm going to be able to showcase to you those citadeling a battleship, being able to do decent damage to cruisers, and just some other type of positional things. So I normally, the reason why I feel like I'm not going to be able to get a good randoms clip is that I'm recording this video today. I try to record these Friday highlights on Thursday nights, and that's like around 6 o'clock. No, it's not 6 o'clock. It'll be 4 or 5 o'clock, or maybe even 3 o'clock. Eastern time, but when I try to do these videos, record them on Friday mornings here in Norway, the North American server, so let's say if it's 10 here, then it means it's 4 a.m. North American server time, and there's just people doing really weird, strange things that late at night in the time zone. So going to be pushing up here on the right flank here. I was actually just trying to look at the concealment because I don't know if I had the concealment fully built in yet here on Sinop in this match, but we get a nice citadel on that main Maya, who was broadside to us. So he's hurting a bit right now. And then we have a King George and we have a Hyuga there in the distance. 2 destroyers on each team. And yes, so right now I have the concealment as 14.6. You can get it down to 13.1, which is what I've gone for. I think on this stage, I had like maybe a 17, 18 point commander with Nikolai Kuznetsov. And so I went for the tank build, and then the concealment was the last 4-point skill I added on. So I didn't really feel like I needed the concealment starting off, just because most of the times when you play this Russian battleship line, you are the tank. You're tanking a lot of damage, which means you're spotted for a lot of that time, and you have really good armor across the ship, even the deck armor. So you're pretty resilient to like destroyer caliber, high explosive spam, HE spam, that type of thing. But that's just not always the case, especially when you get into like something more like the King George's HE, which is big enough that it can hurt if it hits the right areas of our ship and catching us on fire. So I did get that one salvo off there a moment ago because the Hyuga was outside my gun firing penalty spotting range. So that's why I took the shot when I did a little bit ago. Here you can see we took only just under 4K 1,000 fire damage, or from the high explosive. Now I'm popping the spotter or fighter plane, excuse me. I want to see if this Basilisk is right behind the island, which he is. So I do not want to push out around the corner, although I have to wait with this reload time to be able to get the guns off. And I think actually what I end up doing here is I slow down, and we just go nose into the rock here. Wait for the guns to reload. And we get him down 146, so unfortunately we didn't get him when we needed to, and now he's turning broadside to get his torpedoes off. And we have 2 fires burning on us right now, and I decided to go ahead and hit the damage control party. I probably shouldn't have, because if I take one of these torpedoes and I get a flooding, I'm not going to be able to put it out for some time. You have the fast damage control teams on your Russian battleships. Oh, and I think I get a good salvo in here on the King George. No, I do not. So now we have flooding and engines knocked out. So that is a mistake that I used the damage control team too early, because I'm not going to be punished for it. I think I kind of began to cruise up behind the island because I was pretty sure that I was going to have the Basilisk dead, but that indeed was not the case. So I definitely was punished for it. But I do have Nikolai Kuznetsov, so as my health pool goes so far down, I'm able to get that off and put out the fire and live a bit longer and get a little healing back. And now we get to stack on our next repair party. And we got 2 citadels right through the King George, his bow. So we're just going to do that again, even though he's angled in towards us. And we're going to move up and put this island between us and the Maya, so we don't have to worry about him. So we're trying to isolate our engagements here. Ideally, we want one-on-one engagements. And we're just going to finish him off and punching through the rest of his 26mm bow. So the fast damage control teams, they're different in the sense that they only last like 10, I think you can get a max 11 seconds. And then they have a quick cooldown time. So they come off cooldown really quick compared to your normal typical cooldown time for a damage control team. So that's very helpful. It helps you out a lot when you're tanking. So if you keep getting repetitively set on fire, you can just keep putting it out. So it wasn't the worst thing, but I did definitely make a misplay there. So even though you really want to put out the 2 fires in a situation like that, you just got to wait and see if there's going to be torpedoes, or wait till the torpedoes come, and then you can put everything out. Otherwise, you're putting yourself in a lot of risk, just like I did there. Now, our team's doing okay. It's still, let's see, 4 versus 3 now. And I'm not really concerned that I need to continue the engagement right now. All I have to do is just sit here, be patient, let my heals come back up. So I have myself tucked in nicely between these 2 islands. The moss over at A is beyond my detectability range, even though I have poor detectability at 14.6 right now. So we're doing okay. It's not a big deal for the moment, but I do want to step out here and help the shores, because what me and the shores are going to be able to do is that we're going to get this Maya in a crossfire. But I wanted to wait until I got this heal off before I stepped out here. So I switched to the rear turret perspective because I want to make sure that my rear turret does not fire into the island. So we're going to wait. And now we're going to be able to take the shot. And I'm not going to have that rear turret hit the island. I do see a lot of players who get a little trigger itchy. Like you're itching to double tap the left mouse key. And then half or one of your turrets just goes, half your turret salvo or an entire turret salvo is just going to go into the island. So you just have to be a little patient, make sure that you're going to get the most of your DPM. And even though we're this low with health, our reload time has dropped down from that 33 seconds to that roughly probably 29 seconds now that I've put the heal back on, as you saw me looking at that a little bit ago. And we're going to be able to polish him off. So it's just really good stuff that you're able to do here in the Sinop when you play her according to her strengths. And here we saw a Battleship salvo coming in on us, so we decided to turn out. So we're going to secure this cap, and then we're going to turn back bow in to the enemy battleship. And then so we're going to engage him for a little bit. So I only have one repair party left. So you only get, I think, before you pick up what would be the equivalent of the superintendent. I can't remember if it's named the same thing. No, it's, what is it on the battleships? I'll have to look at that tomorrow. But basically gives you additional damage control team and a repair party. I think stock, you start off with 3 heals and 4 fast damage control teams. And then once you pick up said skill, you will go up to 5 damage control, fast damage control teams and 4 repair parties. So one of the tricks with this Russian battleship line, like this Sinop, is you have to learn how to moderate, make a good use of your timing between your different consumables. You know, you have your heal going, and maybe you only have 1 fire ticking, and you don't want to use that fast damage control team yet, but now your heal's on cooldown, and you're waiting for it to come back, and you get set on a fire or 2, and you're like, no, I'm just going to put that out because your heal is always going to be in debt, or you're always going to be needing to heal back more damage because you are overtaxing your repair party team, your repair party. So then even if you only have 1 fire, don't feel bad to go ahead and use your fast damage control team. If you're in a situation where maybe you can go dark, you can disengage, or you're just in a position where simply the enemy team is not going to be able to keep firing on you. And even if they are able to still fire on you, maybe it's a 1v1. It might not be a bad idea to still go ahead and use the damage control team just to not have such a huge, vast amount of health that you need to heal back. So now we're going to move in on the Höge. If I'm pronouncing that ship name right, I don't really know. So we want to actually close in the distance here. Let's talk about the dispersion actually real quick of Sinop. Your dispersion with the Russian battleships is not great. It is definitely not as bad as the Gneisenau now, in my opinion. Even though you get 9 of these 4 and 6mm guns. But the dispersion is pretty straightforward with the Sinop. The closer you get, the more accurate your guns are going to be. And that is really what you want to be able to close in the distance. And so, you know, we don't have to really worry about, when you pick on different battleship engagements, worry about torpedoes, right? So here we're safe because I'm pretty sure the Höge doesn't have any torpedoes off the top of my head. I could be wrong and just talking nonsense. Here we killed the throttle tone back in. We showed a little bit too much of that bow armor, but we still did okay. Our belt was actually able to mitigate most of that damage that we took. With just 30 seconds left, so we brought the Höge down. We have the Moss, or the Haida, sorry, our Haida, shooting at him in the distance from the, is that supposed to be the Alpha Cap? So we can still keep putting the pressure on him. He has to turn, he has to angle away, and our Haida is pretty safe. So, so you can see most of our shells were trying to aim more up into that superstructure of the belt. And you may have noticed when he fired at us, he did actually knock out one of our turrets. So there's a possibility, but he's actually got some decent sized guns as well. So in this clip, we moved up on to rank 7. And now going into the post-battle results. So we did 131,000 damage. We had the Dreadnought and the High Caliber. 2 destroyed, 4 citadels, 1 solo cap in Sinop. So that's actually rather funny in my opinion. So we did alright overall. Got over 380,000 credits, and we had a good amount of experience and free XP. And now going into team score. So 2,104 base XP, being top on our team with our Haida doing quite well. So Sinop and ranked, especially when you're tier 7 ranked or tier 7, tier 6 ranked, is just really strong, really to the point of almost being overpowered, but nah, I think she's balanced really good just because the ship revolves around her main battery and her armor. And as long as you utilize those 2 things well, and you know where to aim on ships that have that weak armor, like we did with the King George, and you can do this almost with any enemy tier 7 battleship that you go up against, they will have a softer nose, and you can use those 4 and 6mm guns to just punish them through the bow or the stern. Now, one of the things they did to kind of help nerf, I guess, Sinop is that you have a longer reload time. So our standard reload time is 33 seconds rather than being the standard 30 seconds. So that's kind of the trade-off that they slightly did in reducing or extending her reload time, I should say. But again, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get a good live commentary randoms video. I'll probably still try to do that sometime in the near future. It's just really hard when you can just see there's players on both teams that just were making a lot of questionable decisions, and and more so than normal, it just didn't feel right, and I can't just keep playing random battles until I eventually 3 hours later get that a decent match to be able to show you, because some days it's just you know how it goes in World Warships. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you subscribed, thanks so much. I would appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.